start with chapter 31. Chapter 31. Namo fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. The unsurpassed, profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of years. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Flower Adornment Sutra, the Daska one's lifespan, chapter 31. At that time, my King Bodhisattva Mahasattva, in the midst of the great assembly, addressed all Bodhisattvas, saying, Disciples of the Buddha, one kappa in the Saha world, the land of Shakyamuni Buddha, is a single day and night in the land of ultimate bliss, the land of Amita Buddha. One kappa in the land of ultimate bliss is a single day and night in the Kashayabana world, the land of Vajra solidity Buddha. One kappa in the Kashayabana world is a single day and night in the world unretreating wheel of sun, the land of wholesome and supreme light blossoming lotus flowers Buddha. One kappa in the world unretreating wheel of sun is a single day and night in the world apart from defilement, the land of Dharmabana Buddha. One kappa in the world apart from defilement is a single day and night in the wholesome lamp world, the land of Lion Buddha. One kappa in the wholesome lamp world is a single day and night in the wonderful light world, the land of bright light treasury Buddha. One kappa in the wonderful light world is a single day and night in the world difficult to surpass, the land of Dharma light from blossoming lotus flowers Buddha. One kappa in the world difficult to surpass is a single day and night in the adorning wisdom world, the land of brilliance of all spiritual penetrations Buddha. One kappa in the adorning wisdom world is a single day and night in the mirror light world, the land of moon wisdom Buddha. Disciples of the Buddha, thus this sequence continues, increasing throughout millions of sankheyas of worlds. One kappa in the very last world is a single day and night in the supreme lotus flower world, the land of world-worthy supremacy Buddha. Which universal worthy Bodhisattva, along with all the great Bodhisattvas, and thus whose conduct is similar to his, completely filled. End of chapter 31. End of chapter 31. Flower Adornment Sutra, all Bodhisattvas dwelling places, chapter 32. At that time, my King Bodhisattva Mahasattva, in the midst of the assembly, addressed all the Bodhisattvas, saying, Disciples of the Buddha, in the east there is a place called the Mountain of the Immortals, where from the past up to now multitudes of Bodhisattvas have dwelt. At present, a Bodhisattva named Vajra Supremacy is there with his retinue of a multitude of Bodhisattvas, 300 in all, in whose midst he constantly proclaims the Dharma. In the south there is a place called Supreme Summit Mountain, where from the past up to now multitudes of Bodhisattvas have dwelt. At present a Bodhisattva named Dharma Wisdom is there, with his retinue of a multitude of Bodhisattvas, 500 in all, in whose midst he constantly proclaims the Dharma. In the west there is a place called Blazing Vajra Mountain, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. At present a bodhisattva named Vigorous and Fearless Conduct is there with his retinue, 300 in all, in whose midst he constantly proclaims the Dharma.
In the north there is a place called Accumulation or Incense Mountain, where from the past up to now
multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. At present a bodhisattva named Fragrant Elephant is there with his retinue of a multitude of bodhisattvas, 300 in all, in whose midst he constantly proclaims the Dharma. In the northeast there is a place called Pure and Cool Mountain, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. At present a bodhisattva named Manjushri is there with his retinue of a multitude of bodhisattvas, 10,000 in all, in whose midst he constantly proclaims the Dharma. In the ocean there is a place called Vajra Mountain, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. At present a bodhisattva named Dharma Arising is there with his retinue of a multitude of bodhisattvas, 1,200 in all, in whose midst he constantly proclaims the Dharma. In the southeast there is a place called Chaitya Mountain, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. At present a bodhisattva named Heavily Crowned is there, with his retinue of a multitude of bodhisattvas, 1,000 in all, in whose midst he constantly proclaims the Dharma. In the southwest there is a place called Bright Light Mountain, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. At present a bodhisattva named Worthy Victory is there, with his retinue of a multitude of bodhisattvas, 3,000 in all, in whose midst he constantly proclaims the Dharma. In the northwest there is a place called Fragrant Wind Mountain, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt.
At present a bodhisattva named Fragrant Light is there with his retinue of multitude of bodhisattvas, 5,000 in all, in whose midst he constantly proclaims the Dharma.
In the great ocean there is another dwelling place called Adorned Grotto, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the south of Vaishali there is a dwelling place called the Root of Wholesome Dwelling, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the city of Mathura there is a dwelling place called Full Containment Grotto, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the city of Kaundinya there is a dwelling place called Dharma Seat, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the city of Other Shore of Purity there is a dwelling place called Muchilinda Grotto, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the country of Magadha there is a dwelling place named Unobstructed Establishment of Dragon Kings, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the country of Cambodia there is a place called Producing Kindness, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the country of China there is a dwelling place called Narayana Grotto, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the country of Kustama there is a dwelling place called Oxhead Mountain, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the city of Kashmira there is a dwelling place called Sequence, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the city of Increasing Happiness there is a dwelling place called Grotto of the Honor One, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the country of Amara there is a dwelling place called the Light of Kotis of Treasuries, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. In the country of Gandhara there is a dwelling place called the Grotto of Jampala, where from the past up to now multitudes of bodhisattvas have dwelt. End of chapter 32. Chapter 32. We'll go to chapter 35. Avatamsaka Sutra, the meritorious virtues of the light of the dusk one, secondary characteristics, chapter 35. At that time, the world owner one addressed Bodhisattva jeweled hands as follows: Disciple of the Buddha, the dusk one worthy of offerings, one of proper and equal right enlightenment, has a secondary characteristic called King of Perfection. From within the secondary characteristic is emitted a brilliant light called blazing splendor, which has 7 million samkhya's of lights as its retinue. Disciple of the Buddha, when I was a Bodhisattva in the palace of the Tushita heaven, I emitted a brilliant light called King Banner of Light, which illumined as many worlds as there are most of dust in 10 Buddha lands. The beings in the hells of those worlds who encountered that light had all their sufferings extinguished. They obtained 10 kinds of pure eyes, and the same thing happened to their ears, noses, tongues, bodies, and minds. They were all delighted and exuberantly voiced their exaltation. When their lives ended, they were reborn in the Tushita heaven. In that heaven there is a drum called Delightful. When those beings were reborn in that heaven, the drum sent forth a sound that told them, all ye gods, it is from non-laxity of mind, from having planted good roots in the presence of the Daska ones, from having drawn near numerous good advisors in the past, and from Bharachana's great, awesome spiritual power that at the end of your lives you have been reborn in this heaven. Disciple of the Buddha, the souls of the Bodhisattva's feet have the mark of the thousand-spoked wheel called King of Universally Illuminating Bright Light. This has a secondary characteristic called King of Perfection, which constantly emits 40 kinds of bright light. Among these lights there is a certain light called pure merit and virtue that illumines as many worlds as there are motes of dust in a county of Nayutas of Buddha lands. It is able to accord with the various karmic deeds and propensities of living beings and bring them all to maturity. When the beings undergoing extreme suffering in the Avicii hell encountered that light, their lives came to an end and they were all reborn in the Tushita heaven. Upon being reborn in that heaven, they heard the sound of the celestial drum telling them, good indeed, all you gods. Bodhisattva Varachana has entered the Samadhi free from defilement. You should respectfully make obeisance to him. At that time, when all the gods heard the celestial drum exhort and instruct them in that way, they all had the thought, how strange and rare, how can this subtle and wondrous sound come forth? Then the celestial drum told the gods,
the sound that I send forth has come about from the power of good roots. Gods, when I say
I am not attached to a self or anything pertaining to a self. Likewise, when each Buddha calls himself Buddha, he is not attached to a self or anything pertaining to a self. Gods, just as the sound of my voice does not come from the east, south, west, or north, the fourth intermediate points above or below, so too the karmic reward of accomplishing Buddhahood does not come from the 10 directions. Gods, it is analogous to when you yourselves were formerly in the hells. The hells and your bodies did not come from the 10 directions. The bodies you had in the hells were produced solely from the evil karma you created in confusion and from the bonds of ignorance. Those bodies had no basis or source. God's Bodhisattva Varachana sends forth bright light by the power of his awesome virtue, yet that light does not come from the 10 directions. In the same way, Gods, the sound of my celestial drum does not come from the 10 directions. It is only by the power of good roots from Samadhi and the power of awesome virtue of Prajna Paramita that such a pure, clear sound comes forth, and such various kinds of self-mastery are displayed. Gods, it is analogous to how Sumeru, the king of mountains, has upon its summit the supremely wonderful palace of the heaven of the 33, with its various articles of pleasure, yet those articles of pleasure do not come from the 10 directions. In the same way, the sound of my celestial drum does not come from the 10 directions. Gods, it is analogous to how, for beings as numerous as the most of dust produced from grinding up walls, as many as the most of dust in a county of Nayutas of Buddha lands, I proclaim the Dharma according to their inclinations, so that they rejoice profusely. And yet I do not become tired or weary of doing so, nor do I start to retreat or waver, nor do I become arrogant or lax.
God's Bodhisattva Vairocana's dwelling in the samadhi of freedom from defilement is just the same way. From the secondary characteristic on his right palm, a light is emitted that displays the limitless spiritual powers of self-mastery, of which no hearers or Pratyeka Buddhas are able to know, much less living beings.
Cause you should go to the Bodhisattva, draw near to and make offerings to him. Never again should you crave the pleasures of the five desires. Attachment to the pleasures of the five desires impedes good rules. Cause just as a cosmic fire completely consumes Mount Sumeru, leaving nothing remaining, so too do greed and desire bind one's mind so that one can never be mindful of the Buddha. Cause you should all acknowledge and requite kindness. Cause when beings fail to requite kindness, they usually suffer untimely deaths and are reborn in the hells. Cause you work formerly in the hells, but when the light illumined your bodies, you were able to cast them off and be reborn here. You should now quickly dedicate your merit to increase your good roots. Cause just as I, this celestial drum, am neither male or female, yet am able to produce limitless, boundless, inconceivable phenomena, so too gods, although neither male or female, are nonetheless able to enjoy the various sublime gardens and groves of this palace. Just as I, the celestial drum, am neither produced nor destroyed, so too form, feeling, thinking, formations, and consciousness are free from production and destruction. If you can understand this, then you will enter the samadhi of the seal of non-reliance. When the gods heard that sound, they obtained what they never had before. They immediately created by transformation 10,000 clouds of flowers, 10,000 clouds of incense, 10,000 clouds of music, 10,000 clouds of banners, 10,000 clouds of canopies, and 10,000 clouds of praises. Having wrought these transformations, they went together to the palace where Bodhisattva Vairocana dwelt. They placed their palms together respectfully and stood to one side, longing to gaze upon the Bodhisattva, but unable to see him. Then one god spoke as follows: Bodhisattva Vairocana has already descended from here and taken birth among humans, in the family of King Pure Rice, enclosed in a pavilion of Chandana. He now dwells in the womb of Lady Maya. At that time all the gods contemplated with the celestial eye and saw the Bodhisattva's body in the human realm, in the family of Pure Rice King, with gods from the Brahma heavens and desire heavens attending upon and making offerings to him. All the gods thought it would never do if we did not go to pay our respects to the Bodhisattva and inquire about his well-being, or if we entertain even a single thought of fond attachment to his celestial palace. At that time all the gods, accompanied by a retinue numbering 10 Nayutas, wished to descend to Jambudvipa.
Then a sound came from the celestial drum, saying, Gods, it is not the case that the Bodhisattva Mahasava
died here and were reborn in that realm. Rather, he uses spiritual penetration to account with the needs of beings' minds and causes them to see him. Gods, just as I now, although invisible to the eye, am nonetheless able to produce sounds, so too the Bodhisattva Mahasava, in entering the samadhi of freedom from defilement, although invisible to the eye, is nonetheless able to manifest being born in various places. He has transcended discrimination, has cast out arrogance, and is free from defiant attachment. Gods, you should resolve to realize Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Purify and regulate your minds, dwell in wholesome comportment, repent of and eradicate all obstacles of karma, obstacles of afflictions, obstacles of retribution, and obstacles of use. You should use bodies equal to the number of beings in the Dharma realm, heads equal to the number of beings in the Dharma realm, tongues equal to the number of beings in the Dharma realm, and wholesome deeds of body, speech, and mind equal to the number of beings in the Dharma realm, to repent of and eradicate all obstructive evil transgressions. Hearing those words, the gods obtained what they had never had before. Their hearts were overjoyed, and they asked, "How does the Bodhisattva Mahasattva repent of and eradicate all evil transgressions?" At that time, the celestial drum, by means of the power of good roots of samadhi of a Bodhisattva, put forth a sound and told them, "Gods, a Bodhisattva knows that karma comes neither from the east nor from the south, west or north, or the four intermediate directions above or below. Instead, karma collects and dwells in the mind, arising solely from confusion and having no external location. The Bodhisattva sees this with decisive clarity and has no doubts about it."
It is analogous to how the celestial drum speaks of karma, retribution, action, precept, happiness, peace, and all those samadhis.
In the same way, all Bodhisattvas speak of a self, what pertains to a self, living beings, greed, anger, delusion, and all the various kinds of karma, and yet there really is no self or anything that pertains to a self, nor can any karma that is creating or retribution that is suffered in the six destinies be found by searching throughout the 10 directions. Gods, it is analogous to how my sound is neither produced nor destroyed, yet gods who commit evil hear no other sound but the sound of the hells, which causes them to awaken. In the same way, all karma is neither produced nor destroyed, yet according to what is done and amassed, its retribution is undergone. Gods, it is analogous to how the sound that I, the celestial drum, put forth, continue without end or interruption throughout limitless eons, neither coming nor going. Gods, if there were going and coming, then there will be annihilation and permanence. But the Buddhas never expound the dharmas of annihilation and permanence, except expediently to bring living beings to maturity. Gods, just as my sound is heard in limitless worlds by living beings according to the thoughts in their minds, so too do all Buddhas cause living beings to see them according to the thoughts in those beings' minds. Gods, it is like the crystal mirror called able to shine, which is pure, clear, and translucent, and equal in extent to 10 world systems. In it, the reflections of all the mountains, rivers, and living beings, including hell beings, animals, and hungry ghosts, of limitless and boundlessly many lands appear. Gods, what do you think? Could those images be said to enter the mirror or come out of the mirror? The gods answer no. The God's karma is the same way. Although it produces karmic retributions, it has no source or destination. Gods, you should know that just as a magician can delude people's eyes, karma is the same way. If I know it to be that way, your repentance and reform will be genuine, and all offenses and evil will be completely cleansed away. When that Dharma was spoken, all gods in the Tushita heavens in worlds as many as the motes of dust, in hundreds of thousands of kodis of Mayudas of Buddha lands, obtained patience with the non-production of dharmas, and limitless inconceivable asamkhiyas of gods of the six desire heavens brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Samya Sambodhi. All the goddesses in the six desire heavens renounced their female bodies and brought forth the resolve for unsurpassed Bodhi. At that time, all the gods, upon hearing of universal worthies great and vast transference, attained the 10 grounds and achieved the samadhi of adornment by all powers. Moreover, because they used pure deeds of the 3 karmas, which were as numerous as the number of living beings, to repent of and cast out all their heavy obstacles, they immediately saw as many lotuses made of the 7 treasures as there are motes of dust in hundreds of thousands of kodis of Mayudas of Buddha lands. Upon every flower was a Bodhisattva seated in full lotus and shining radiantly. Every secondary characteristic of each Bodhisattva emitted rays of light equal to the number of living beings. In each of those rays were Buddhas seated in full lotus equal to the number of living beings. Those Buddhas spoke Dharma in accord with the minds of living beings, yet that did not reveal even a small portion of the power of the samadhi of freedom from defilement. At that time, all the gods, using the multitude of flowers described above, then created by transformation in every single pore of their bodies, prolific clouds of wonderful blooms equal to the number of living beings, and presented them as offerings to the Daskamon Varuchana, showering them upon the Buddha. and all of those flowers settled on the Buddha's body. The clouds of fragrance from them universally rained down on walls, as many as the motes of dust in innumerable Buddha lands. Living beings who came into contact with the fragrance became as peaceful and happy as a bhikshu, who, upon entering the fourth dhyana, has expunged all his karmic obstacles. Forms, sounds, smells, tastes, and objects of touch have associated with each of them 500 afflictions inside and 500 afflictions outside.
There are 21,000 afflictions for living beings who act predominantly out of greed, 21,000 afflictions for those who act predominantly out of anger, 21,000 afflictions for those who act predominantly out of delusion, and 21,000 afflictions for those with equal amounts of all three.
All living beings who smelled the fragrance understood and knew that all of the afflictions are empty and unreal. Once they knew this, they then accomplished clouds and banners of fragrance from sovereign, bright, and purified gurus. Living beings who saw those canopies planted as many gurus for becoming a pure golden wheel-turning king, as there are sands in one Ganges river. Disciple of the Buddha, a bodhisattva dwelling in this position of wheel-turning king, teaches and transforms living beings in worlds equal to the number of motes of dust in hundreds of thousands of kodis of nayutas of Buddha lands. Disciples of the Buddha, it is the same as in the bright mirror world of the Daskama lunar wisdom, where bhikshus, bhikshunis, upasakas and upasikas, and others from countless worlds constantly appear by transformation in order to hear the Dharma. This Daskama extensively proclaims for them the events of his past lives without any interruption for even a single thought. The Bodhisattva dwelling in the position of pure golden wheel-turning king is also that way, in that anyone who even temporarily encounters his light is certain to attain the position of the 10th round of a Bodhisattva due to the power of gurus from his previous cultivation. Disciple of the Buddha, it is as when one achieves the first jhana, although one's life has not ended, one can nonetheless see all the palaces in which the Brahma gods dwell and experience the bliss of the Brahma world. The same is true of those who obtain any of the dhyanas. The Bodhisattva Mahasattva dwelling in the position of pure golden wheel-turning king emits a pure light from his mani cow, and living beings who encounter that light all attain the position of the 10th Bodhisattva ground, accomplish limitless wisdom light, obtain 10 kinds of pure eyes, up to and including 10 kinds of pure minds, perfect countless many profound samadhis, and accomplish as many pure flesh eyes. Disciple of the Buddha, if a person were to grind a kodi of nayutas of Buddha lands to motes of dust, and each mote of dust became a land, and then went on to grind those Buddha lands, as many as the motes of dust, into motes of dust, and if he were to place all those motes of dust in his left hand, and travel eastward carrying them, depositing a single mote of dust each time he passed through walls as many as the number of motes of dust, continuing to travel eastwards that way until he exhausted all those motes of dust, and then if he were to do the same southwards, westwards, and northwards, in the four intermediate directions above and below,
those words throughout
the 10 directions, whether he had or had not deposited a mote of dust in them, were combined to form a single Buddha land. Jewel hands, what do you think? Could a Buddha land that vast and limitless be conceived of? He replied, no. A Buddha land that vast, great, and limitless would be rare, unique, and inconceivable. And the living beings who, upon hearing this analogy, are able to faithfully faith and understanding, should be known as even more rare and unique. The Buddha said, Jewel hands, indeed, it is as you say. If there are good men and good women who bring forth faith upon hearing this analogy, I bestow upon them a prediction that they will definitely realize Anuttara Samya Sambodhi and attain the Daskama's unsurpassed wisdom. Jewel hands, suppose further that a person were to grind as many vast great Buddha lands like the one just described, as there are motes of dust in 1,000 kodis of Buddha lands into motes of dust. Suppose that in the manner of the previous analogy, he were to deposit those motes of dust one by one until they were exhausted, combine all the worlds traversed into a single Buddha land, then grind that land into motes of dust. Suppose he carried out that process over and over until he had done it 80 times. The Bodhisattva, by means of the pure flesh eyes gained from his karmic reward, would be able to see clearly all the motes of dust in all of those vast great Buddha lands within a single thought. He also would be able to see living beings as many as the motes of dust in 100 kodis of such vast great Buddha lands, just the way the crystal mirrors pure light illumines walls as many as the motes of dust in 10 Buddha lands. Jeweled hands, all of this is brought about by the Gurus from the blessings and virtues of the pure golden wheel-turning king's deep, profound samadhi. End of chapter 35. We go to chapter 36. Avatamsaka Sutra, Universal Worthy's Conduct, chapter 36. At that time, Universal Worthy Bodhisattva Mahasattva again addressed the great multitude of all the Bodhisattvas, saying, Disciples of the Buddha, the way this has been proclaimed is just as a general discussion of a small portion of the Daskaman state that fits the capacity and disposition of living beings. Why is that? All Buddhas, world-order ones, appear in the world for the sake of all living beings who lack wisdom and do evil, who calculate a self and what belongs to a self, who are attached to the body, who are upside down and down, who hold deviant views and make discriminations, who are constantly interactive with all bonds and fetters, who flow along with birth and death and leave the path of the Daskaman far behind. Disciples of the Buddha, I have not seen any such dharma as the great offense and mistake of bodhisattvas, giving rise to thoughts of anger towards other bodhisattvas. Why is that? Disciples of the Buddha, if bodhisattvas were to give rise to thoughts of anger and hatred towards other bodhisattvas, that would open doors to millions of obstructions. What are the million obstructions? They are the obstruction of not seeing Bodhi, the obstruction of not hearing proper Dharma, the obstruction of being born in a world that is not pure, the obstruction of being born in the evil destinies, the obstruction of being born in locations of difficulties, the obstruction of having many illnesses, the obstruction of being the object of much slander, the obstruction of being born in destinies where one is obtuse and down, the obstruction of destroying and losing proper mindfulness, the obstruction of being deficient in wisdom, the obstruction of the eyes, obstruction of the ears, obstruction of the nose, obstruction of the tongue, obstruction of the body, obstruction of the mind, the obstruction of evil advisors, the obstruction of evil companions and parties, the obstruction of liking to cultivate the small vehicle, the obstruction of liking to associate with the coarse and vulgar, the obstruction of not believing or liking people of great awesome virtue, the obstruction of liking to dwell together with people whose views are far from proper, the obstruction of being born in an outside way household, the obstruction of dwelling in demonic states, the obstruction of being distant from the Buddha's proper teaching, the obstruction of not seeing good companions, the obstruction of finding it hard to plan good rules, the obstruction of increasing in unwholesome dharmas, the obstruction of being in low and vile situations, the obstruction of being born in a border region, the obstruction of being born in a household of evil people, the obstruction of being born among evil spirits, evil dragons, evil yakshas, evil gandharvas, evil asuras, evil garudas, evil kinnaras, evil maharagas or evil rakshasas, the obstruction of not liking the Buddha Dharma, the obstruction of practicing dharmas of foolish youths, the obstruction of having fond attachment to the small vehicle, the obstruction of not liking the great vehicle, the obstruction of one's nature being often startled and alarmed, the obstruction of one's mind being constantly worried and troubled, the obstruction of fondly clinging to birth and death, the the obstruction of not concentrating on the Buddha Dharma, the obstruction of not liking to see or hear of the spiritual penetrations of self-mastery of a Buddha, the obstruction of not obtaining the faculties of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of not cultivating the pure conduct of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of shrinking back from the deep minds of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of not making the great vows of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of not making the resolve for all wisdom, the obstruction of being lax and neglecting the conduct of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of not being able to purify and regulate all karmas, the obstruction of not being able to attract and hold great blessings, the obstruction of not being able to have keen power of wisdom, the obstruction of being severed from vast great wisdom, the obstruction of not protecting and upholding all the practices of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of liking to slander the words of those of all wisdom, the obstruction of leaving the body of all Buddhas far behind, the obstruction of liking to dwell in the states of all the hordes of demons, the obstruction of not single-mindedly cultivating the states of a Buddha, the obstruction of not decisively making the vast vows of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of not liking to dwell together with Bodhisattvas, the obstruction of not seeking the good roots of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of one's nature harboring many views and doubts, the obstruction of one's nature constantly being stupid and dark,
because of not being able to practice a Bodhisattva's fair and impartial giving, having the obstruction of not renouncing our rights,
because of not being able to hold the Dharma's precepts, having the obstacle of breaking the precepts arise, because of not being able to enter the door of patience, having the obstacle of stupid, harmful hatred and anger arise, because of not being able to practice the great vigor of a Bodhisattva, having the obstruction of the field of laziness arise,
because of not being able to obtain all samadhis, having the obstruction of being scattered arise, because of not cultivating prajna paramita, having the obstruction of evil wisdom arise, the obstruction of lacking skill with regard to what is and what is not the case, the obstruction of lacking expedient methods for crossing over living beings, the obstruction of not being able to contemplate with the Bodhisattva's wisdom, the obstruction of not being able to understand and know a Bodhisattva's dharmas of escape, because of not accomplishing the 10 kinds of vast great eyes of a Bodhisattva, having the obstruction of one's eyes being as if blind from birth, because of not hearing unobstructed Dharma, having one's mouth be as if dumb and mute, because of not being endowed with the mouth's and characteristics, having one's nose faculty be broken, because of not being able to discern and understand the languages of living beings, developing an obstruction in the tongue faculty, because of looking down on living beings, developing an obstruction in the body faculty, because of one's mind being very crazy and scattered, developing an obstruction in the mind faculty, because of not maintaining the 3 categories of Vinaya comportment, developing an obstruction to body karma, because of constantly giving rise to the 4 kinds of errors, developing an obstruction to speech karma, because of often producing greed, anger, and deviant views, developing an obstruction to mind karma, the obstruction of seeking the Dharma with the thieving mind, the obstruction of severing the states of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of one's mind shrinking back from a Bodhisattva's dharmas of courage, the obstruction of one's mind becoming lazy on the path of escape of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of one's mind wishing to stop and rest from the doors of light or wisdom of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of one's mind weakening in the power of mindfulness of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of not being able to dwell and maintain the Dharma's teaching dharmas, the obstruction of not being able to draw near to the Bodhisattva's path of freedom from production, the obstruction of not being able to practice the Bodhisattva paths of non-loss and non-destruction, the obstruction of following the positions proper to the 2 vehicles, and the obstruction of becoming far distant from the seed nature of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 3 periods of time.
Disciples of the Buddha, if Bodhisattvas were to give rise
to a single thought or anger towards other Bodhisattvas, that would bring about doors of 1,000,000 obstructions such as these, Why is that? Disciples of the Buddha, I have not seen any such dharma as the great offense and mistake of bodhisattva, giving rise to thoughts of anger towards other bodhisattvas. Therefore, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas,
who wish to quickly perfect all bodhisattva conducts should diligently cultivate 10 kinds of dharmas. What are the 10? They are one's mind not abandoning any living beings, thinking of all bodhisattvas as being thus karmas, never slandering any Buddha dharmas, knowing that countries have no exhaustion or end, bringing forth deep faith and delight in all bodhisattva practices, not renouncing the resolve for Bodhi, which is equal to empty space and the Dharma realm, contemplating Bodhi and entering the Daskarma's powers, diligently cultivating unobstructed eloquence, teaching and transforming living beings without becoming tired, and dwelling in all world systems without attachment to one's mind. Those are the 10. Namo Sammanto Motana Apalati Hataja Janani Chini Chini Tantaka Namo Vasante Palati Buddha Motamo Tantaka Namo Vaham Pansaha Namo Sammanto Motana Apalati Hataja Janani Chini Chini Tantaka Namo Vasante Palati Buddha Motamo Tantaka Chini Chini Tantaka Namo Vasante Palati Uttamo Tantaka Namo Saha. Praise for the 7th assembly. In the assembly for the 2nd time in the Universal Light Palace, the great Dharma is again expounded. Lofty, it transcends those on the 10 holy and 3 worthy stages. The meanings of equal enlightenment are mysterious and wondrous. The moon of the mind is singularly perfect, ultimately beyond verbal explanations. We have a special dedication. We dedicate the merit to the approval of the high variance for the Wonderful Enlightenment Buddhist Institute at the public hearing. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace, with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate said to the Venerable Master, Namo Tassa
that would be. Okay, that would be the universal word is conduct. Because the pages are different, so I'm not going to. Well, it should be page 4. Sorry, if you had the book, it would be page 4. Namo fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. The unsurpassed, profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see it and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Flower Adornment Sutra, Chapter 36. Universal worth is conduct. Disciples of the Buddha, once the Bodhisattva Mahasattva dwells securely in these 10 dharmas, then he can perfect 10 kinds of purities. What are the 10? They are the purity of penetrating profound dharmas, the purity of drawing near to good knowing advisors, the purity of protecting and upholding all Buddha's dharmas, the purity of comprehending the realm of empty space, the purity of deeply entering the Dharma realm, the purity of contemplating boundless minds, the purity of having identical good words with all Bodhisattvas, the purity of not attaching a compass, the purity of contemplating the 3 periods of time, and the purity of cultivating all Buddha's dharmas. Those are the 10. Disciples the Buddha, once the Bodhisattva Mahasattva dwells in these 10 dharmas, then he can perfect 10 kinds of vast great wisdom. What are the 10? They are the wisdom to know the workings of all living beings' minds, the wisdom to know all living beings' karmic retribution, the wisdom to know all Buddha's dharmas, the wisdom to know the purport of all profound principles of all Buddha dharmas, the wisdom to know all doors of Dharani, the wisdom to know all eloquence of phrasing, the wisdom of skill in means with language to know the sounds and modes of speech of all living beings, the wisdom to make his body appear universally within all worlds, the wisdom to universally appear reflected in all assemblies, and the wisdom to be endowed with all wisdom in every location, undergoing birth. Those are the 10 disciples of the Buddha. Once the Bodhisattva Mahasattva dwells in these 10 wisdom, then he can gain entry to 10 kinds of universal entrances.
What the 10 they are, all worlds entering into the path of a single hair.
The path of a single hair entering all worlds, the bodies of all living beings entering into a single body entering the bodies of all living beings, ineffably many kalpas entering a single thought entering ineffably many kalpas. All Buddha Dharmas entering a single Dharma entering all Buddha Dharmas. Ineffably many locations entering a single location entering ineffably many locations. Ineffably many faculties entering a single faculty entering ineffably many faculties. All faculties entering non-faculties entering all faculties. All thoughts entering a single thought entering all thoughts. All spoken sound entering a single spoken sound entering all spoken sounds. All 3 periods of time entering a single time entering all 3 periods of time. Those are the 10 disciples of the Buddha. Once the Bodhisattva Mahasava has made such contemplations, he then dwells in 10 kinds of supremely wondrous minds. What are the 10? They are dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of all world language as non-language, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of all thoughts of living beings, having no place of reliance, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of the ultimate realm or empty space,
dwelling in the supreme wondrous mind of the
boundless Dharma realm, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of all profoundly sacred Buddha Dharmas, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of all deep and undiscriminating Dharmas, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of casting out all doubts and delusions, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of all worlds being level and equal without distinctions, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of the sameness of all Buddhas of the 3 periods of time, and dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of the limitlessness of all Buddha's powers. Those are the 10 disciples of the Buddha. Once the Bodhisattva Mahasava dwells in those 10 kinds of supremely wondrous minds, he then obtains 10 kinds of wisdoms or skill in means in Buddha Dharmas. What are the 10? They are the wisdom or skill in means to comprehend profound Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom or skill in means to bring forth vast and great Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom or skill in means to proclaim various kinds of Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom or skill in means to enter the equality of Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom or skill in means to clearly understand discriminated Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom or skill in means to awaken understanding of undiscriminated Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom or skill in means to deeply enter adorning Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom or skill in means to enter Buddha Dharmas through a single expedient, the wisdom or skill in means to enter Buddha Dharmas through limitless expedients, the wisdom or skill in means to know the non-differentiation of boundless Buddha Dharmas,
and the wisdom of skilling means to
not retreat in one's own mind and strength from all Buddha Dharmas. Those are the 10 disciples of the Buddha. Once the Bodhisattva Mahasava has heard these Dharmas, he should bring forth the mind to accept and maintain them all. Why is that? The Bodhisattva Mahasava, who maintains these Dharmas with slight expenditure of effort, quickly attain Anantara Samyak Sambodhi, he becomes endowed with all Buddha Dharmas in all respects the same as the Dharmas of all Buddhas of the 3 periods of time. At that time, through the Buddha's spiritual might, and because the Dharma is that way, throughout the 10 directions there will world system, many of the finals of death intend ineffably many 100,000, 10 million Nayutas of Buddha Kshetras that experience the 6 kinds of quakes. They bring down all kinds of heaven, surpassing clouds of flowers, clouds of incense, clouds of ointments, raiments, canopies, banners, streamers, monitors, and so forth, including clouds of every kind of adornment. They rain down clouds of groups of musical instruments. There rain down clouds of all bodhisattvas. There rain down clouds of ineffably many from monks of thus come ones.
There rain down crowds of ineffably many exclamation of praises of all the thus come ones. There rain down crowds of souls spoken by thus come ones that fill all Dharma realms.
There rain down clouds of ineffably many increases of Bodhi. There rain down clouds of ineffably many radiating lights. And there rain down clouds of ineffably many spiritual powers to speak Dharma. Just as in this world system with its set of 4 continents, the thus come one was seen in the Bodhisattva's palace, under the Bodhi tree, the Bodhi place, accomplishing equal and proper enlightenment, and proclaiming this Dharma. So too, in all world systems throughout the 10 directions, it was also the same way. At that time, through the Buddha's spiritual might, and because the Dharma is that way in each of the 10 directions from further the world system, many as the 5 months of thus in 10 ineffably many Buddha Kshatriyas away. There were Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, many as the 5 months of thus in 10 Buddha Kshatriyas, who came to that land. They filled the 10 directions and said these words, good indeed, disciple of the Buddha, that you are able to speak this profound Dharma of all Buddhas. Thus come ones, most great vows and bestowals of predictions. Disciple of the Buddha, all of us have the same name, universal worthy, and each of us has come from a universal supreme world system, where universal fairness of master thus come one is. To arrive at this land, all of us through the Buddha's spiritual might, in every single location proclaim this Dharma. All that is spoken is just the same as hearing this assembly with its multitudes. It is all the same with no elaboration or omission. We have all received the Buddha's awesome spiritual power to come to this way place and give you a certification. And just as all we Bodhisattvas, many as the 5 months of thus in 10 Buddha Kshatriyas, have come to this way place to give certification. In all of the world system throughout the 10 directions, it is also exactly the same way.
At that time, universal worthy Bodhisattva Mahasattva, through the Buddha's spiritual mind,
and through the power of his own good words, contemplated in the 10 directions throughout the Dharma realm, and from a wish to disclose the Bodhisattva conduct, from a wish to proclaim the thus come one's realm of Bodhi, from a wish to speak of the realm of great vows, from a wish to tell the number of kalpas of all world systems, from a wish to explain all Buddhas appearing in accord with time, from a wish to describe all thus come ones appearing in accord with living beings whose rules have matured, to inspire them to make offerings, from a wish to make clear how when thus come ones appear in the world, their work is not in vain, from a wish to make clear that from good woods which are planted, rewards are certainly obtained, and from a wish to show how Bodhisattvas of great awesome virtue make their shapes appear before all living beings and speak the Dharma for them, so they become enlightened, spoke verses saying, you all should be delighted and abandoning all coverings, with one mind reverently hear all Bodhisattvas' vows and conduct, how all past Bodhisattvas supreme minds among men used to cultivate and practice, I now will state in order, and I will describe all countless numbers, all world system and all karma, and how the incomparable honored ones make appearances among them, how the Buddhas in the past make great vows to appear in the worlds, and how for living beings they eradicate the suffering and afflictions, and how those lines of discourse perfect the continuity of practice, and so obtain sameness with the Buddhas and the stage of all wisdom, how they saw in the past that all lines among people send on greatness of light, universally illuminating worlds of the 10 directions, How they thought and made us vow, I should be a lamb for worlds, perfect the Buddha's mirror and virtue, the 10 powers and all wisdom, all the many living beings ablaze with greed, hatred, and stupidity. I should save and liberate, destroy suffering in the evil paths.
Having made such vows as this, they were solid and unretreating, perfecting cultivation
Of Bodhisattva conduct and acquired 10 powers of non-obstruction. After making vows like these, never faltering in cultivation, what they did was not in vain, and so they are called lions. Within the single worthy kalpa of the 1,000 Buddhas to appear, all the universal eyes I shall describe in succession. As within the worthy kalpa, limitless kalpas are the same. Those further Buddhas conduct I shall speak all in detail. As is one seed of Buddha Kshetra, limitless Kshetras are the same. All Buddha 10 hour one's conducts I now tell you. All Buddhas successive appearances in worlds according to their vows and according to their names, according to the prediction they receive and according to their lifespans, according to the proper dharma cultivated by them as they intensely seek the way or non-obstruction, according to the living beings they teach as their proper dharma dwells within the world, according to the Buddha Kshetra that they purify the living beings so as the dharma wills, the times and the non-times for proclamations, in purified flocks of beings progressively, according to the karma of living beings, the actions in their faith and understandings, different in grade, superior, middling, or inferior, transforming them so that they cultivate how they enter into wisdom such as those, cultivate those most surpassing conducts, always do the deeds of universal worthy, vastly rescue all living beings. How therefore the karma is with no obstruction, how the karma of the speech is also pure, as are too the workings of their minds, and how none are not that way in the 3 times. Bodhisattva conduct such as those which make ultimate the universal worthy way, so the pure wisdom sun arises and universally shines throughout the Dharma realm, and all the kalpas of the future with more countries than mere words can tell. In one single thought are known completely, yet no discriminations made about them. The practitioner can tend toward and enter grounds like those. The most supreme of all these Bodhisattva dharmas I will speak in minute portion.
How within wisdom which has no bounds or limits, one penetrates the Buddha's states, while entering into all of them without retreating as one cultivates, and perfects the universal worthy wisdom, completing all of universal worthy vows, and entering incomparable wisdom. I shall talk about this conduct in one single mode or thus accomplished in all worlds. If living beings should hear about them, their minds would be confused and go insane. As within a single mode does, so too it is in every mode does. All world system enter within them, it is in that way inconceivable. In every particle or dust are dharmas of all the 10 directions and 3 times. The destinies and the Kshetras are all limitless, yet can be known with all their differences. In every particle or dust are limitless kinds of Buddha Kshetras. Of their various kinds are limitless, not a single one remains unknown. Everything within the Dharma realm, with all the various characteristics and types of destinies, each having differences, can all be discerned and known. With wisdom to deeply enter the fine and subtle, all world systems are distinguished in detail. The coming into being and destruction of each kalpa can be completely understood and described. All kalpas, whether long or short, are known, and the 3 periods of time in just one thought. with practices of beings alike or not the same. All can be known completely in detail. Deep entry can be made into all worlds,
vast and great, or else not vast and great. One body for limitless Kshatriyas and one Kshatriya for limitless bodies, all exist in the 10 directions, world systems of the varying kinds. Vast and great with limitless appearances can be entirely known everyone. Within each of the 3 periods of time, for all the countries without limit, through endowment with deep, profound wisdom, the creations and destructions can all be known. All world system of the 10 directions, whether coming into being or decaying, being in that way ineffably many worthy ones of virtue deeply comprehend. There are either lands and country with various adornments as their grounds, and all their destinies are all thus. This all because of karma being pure. Or else there are world systems which have all types of filth mixed in. This too is evoked by living beings, all is as their conduct. When limitless and boundless Kshatriyas are understood to be just one single Kshatriya, in that way there is entry to all Kshatriyas. Their number more than can be known. All world systems, each and every one, completely enter into one Kshatriya. Yet the world systems do not become one, and moreover they are not confused. World systems are either upright or inverted. They may be high or else they may be low. All of this is thinking on the part of beings that can be known completely in detail. Extensive as world systems are, and so limitless and boundless, the various kinds are known to be just one, and the one is known to be the various kinds. All Buddhist disciples of universal worthy can use a universal worthy wisdom, understanding and know all Kshatriya's number, even though that number has no bounds. They can know the transformations of all worlds, Kshatriya transformations and living beings transformations, Dharma's transformations and all Buddhist transformations, all these to the utmost point, and how for every system of worlds, for all my knowledge of vast and great Kshatriyas, the various different kinds of decorations all arise completely due to karma. Limitless disciples of the Buddha well learned to enter the Dharma realm, and with sound masteries of spiritual penetrations, universally pervade the 10 directions. Through kalpas equal in amount to living beings, if the names of their world systems were spoken, they also would not come to an end unless the Buddha were to state them.
Of world system and thus come one, the various names and titles, passing through limitless kalpas could not be exhaustively spoken.
How much more does there hold true for surpassing wisdom, the dharmas of all Buddhas of the 3 periods of time, which arise directly from the Dharma realm, and permeate the Daskavan's ground, with mindfulness that is pure and unobstructed, and boundless unobstructed wisdom, speaking in detail of Dharma realms, there all sure could be attained. All the world system in the past, vast and great, or else minute and subtle, which have been adorned through cultivation, in one thought can thoroughly be known. In their midst, the lions among people cultivated various Buddha conducts, accomplished equal and proper enlightenment, and manifested all of the self-masteries. In the same way, in the future times, successively through conquest without limit, the Bodhisattvas can completely know all the honored ones of humankind, and all their conduct and their vows, as well as all their states, how diligent they were in cultivation, therein achieving right enlightenment, and know the multitudes of their assemblies, their lifespans as they transform living beings, using all of these postures of Dharma, turning Dharma wheels for living beings. When the Bodhisattvas know in that way, they dwell on universal worthless conduct ground, with its wisdom of total comprehension, which produces each and every Buddha. how included in the present time, each one of the many Buddha lands deeply enters all of these Kshatriyas and penetrates through the Dharma realm. Within every one of those world systems, each and every Buddha of the present, having obtained mastery of the Dharma, proclaims without obstruction whatsoever. They also know the multitudes of their assemblies, the pure lands and powers of responsive transformation, and how exhaustive, limitless, and millions of helpers they constantly consider those affairs, all claiming masters honored by the world, all their awesome spiritual minds and inexhaustible treasuries of wisdom are every bit completely belong to them. They bring forth an unobstructed eye, an unobstructed ear, nose, and body, and an unobstructed vast long tongue, bringing happiness to living beings. Their unobstructed mind, the most supreme, of vast, great, universal purification, with wisdom which is everywhere pervasive, knows all dharmas of the three periods of time.
They will learn about all transformation, transformations of Kshatriyas, transformations of living beings,
Transformation of world, transformation of subduing, and ultimate transformation to reach the other shore. The various distinctions of world realms all remain android because of thought. Upon entering expedient wisdom of a Buddha, this is all entirely understood. In ineffably many multitudes of assemblies, they make appear a body for each one, and they bring them to all see the thus come ones, rescuing and saving boundless living beings. The deep and profound wisdom of all Buddhas is like the sun arising in the world. In each and every one of the countries, it universally appears without resting, penetrating all in the world as being false names with no true actuality. Living beings as well as the world realms are like dreams and also just like shadows. Regarding all the worldly dharmas, Buddhas do not bring forth views of discriminations, and those who are well free of discriminations also do not see discriminations. Limitless and boundlessly many kalpas they understand to be a single thought, and they also know that thought is without thought, that is how they see the world. All the lands and countries without limit in one thought are entirely transcended, yet passing through limitless many kalpas, they do not move from their original place. For them all, the ineffably many kalpas are just the shortest possible interval. They do not see long or short duration, but they ultimate the Dharma offers Kshana. Their mind dwells within world system, and world system dwell in their mind. But for this they do not falsely give rise to discrimination on dual and non-dual, giving living beings and worlds as well as kalpas. All Buddhas and all Buddha's dharmas are all like illusory transformations. The Dharma realm being totally one same as universally in Kshatriyas of the 10 directions.
They may appear limitlessly many bodies, yet they know the bodies arise out of conditions and are ultimately without attachment to them.
Based upon non-dual wisdom, there are realized among people who are not attached to their being, no duality, knowing there is neither duality nor non-duality. They clearly understand and know that all that is worldly is like a mirage, like and like reflections, like an echo and like a dream, like an illusion and like transformational changes. In that way they are called with, and they enter the location of practice of all Buddhas. They accomplish the wisdom of universal well-being and universally deeply illuminate the Dharma realm. They leave far behind default attachments to living beings and worlds, yet expand their great compassionate mind to purify all that is worldly. The Bodhisattvas are always properly mindful, discussing the lion's wondrous Dharma. They are purified just like empty space, yet they establish great expedient means. They are their worldlings as ever confused and upside down, and so resolve to rescue and cross them over. What they practice all completely pure, and they universally pervade all Dharma realms. If seen in their actuality, all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Buddha Dharmas and worldly Dharmas are completely undifferentiated. The thus come treasure of the Dharma body universally enters the world. Although it is present in the world, towards the world it has no attachments. Just as reflected images do not come or go within clear, pure water, you should know it is just the same way. With the Dharma body as it pervades the world, with such freedom from defilement and attachment, the body and worlds are both pure, still and clear, just like empty space, and all things do not have production. They know the body does not have an end. It's without production and without extinction, neither permanent nor without permanence, as it manifests throughout all worlds. They dispel all deviant outlooks and open up proper views. The Dharma nature does not come or go, and does not attach to itself or what belongs to itself. This is as master magician makes appear all kinds of things which do not come from anywhere nor go to any place. The illusion's nature neither has limits nor is it without limits, yet in the midst of the great crowd there manifest limitless and limitless within the limitless. Using this minor still samadhi, they cultivate all wholesome roots
that produces each and every Buddha, and is neither limited nor without limits. Both having limits and not having limits are entirely nothing but thoughts. In understanding and penetrating every destiny,
they are not attached to limits or no limits. The deep, profound Dharma of all Buddhas is vast, most still and tranquil. With the depth of limitless wisdom, they know the profundity of all destinies. The Bodhisattvas level confusion and inversion, the purity of their minds is continuous. They clearly, with powers of spiritual penetrations, cross over living beings without limit. Those not yet peaceful, they make peaceful, and to the peaceful they show the way place. In that way they pervade the Dharma realm, yet their minds have no attachment. They do not dwell in the limit of reality, nor do they enter into nirvana. In that way they pervade the world and enlighten the flocks of beings. Dharma's number and all living beings' number, they completely know and yet are not attached to. They universally rain down the rain of Dharma,
moistening all in the world,
usually
inside of all worlds.
They accomplish right enlightenment in thought after thought, yet still cultivate the Bodhisattva conduct, and never do they ever retreat. All the various bodies in the world are all completely understood and known. In that way, knowing Dharma all bodies, they then obtain all Buddha's bodies. They universally know all living beings, all kalpas along with all kshatras. In the 10 directions without any limits, there's nothing which does not enter the wisdom sea. There is no limit to the bodies of living beings, and they manifest bodies for each one. The Buddha's body, which has no bounds, the wise ones cannot all contemplate and see. All that is known in one thought of, thus come one's appearances in worlds, passing through limitless kalpas, cannot be extolled to the end. The bodies which all Buddhas can manifest in every location are Chiyapari Nirvana. In a single thought they are limitless, and their shariras are each different. In that way, in the times of future, there will be those who seek the Buddha fruition. The ones of decisive wisdom can completely know those resolve for bodhi which are limitless. In that way, in the 3 periods of time, all of the thus come ones therein can each one be totally known. That's called dwelling in universal worthies conduct. In that way, discriminately,
the limitless conducts and grounds, They enter the location of wisdom,
and they will never retreat. With such a wonderful, vast, and great wisdom, they deeply enter the Tuscan one stage, and having entered, they do not retreat. That is called universal worthies wisdom. All the most supremely honored ones universally enter the Tuscan one stage, cultivate and do not retreat, and achieve unsurpassed bodhi. Minds without limit, without bounds, karma, which for each is not the same, all accumulate because of thought, which they levelly and completely know. The defiled and the non-defiled, minds of study and minds beyond study, all of the ineffably many minds, in thought after thought, they completely know. Bodhisattva comprehend that those minds are neither one nor dual, not defiled and not pure as well, that they also are not mixed up or confused, and that all arises out of mind's own thought. In that way, Bodhisattvas completely clearly see that from all the many living beings, minds and thoughts each not the same, there arise the many kinds of worlds. Using such experience as these and cultivating the most supreme context, they are transformationally born from the Buddha's Dharma and obtain the name universal worthy. Living beings all falsely arise, the good and evil destinies all are from thought, because of it there may be rebirth in the heavens, or they may be falling into the hells. The Bodhisattvas contemplate the worlds as arising from false thinking and karma, because the false thinking has no bounds. Worlds too are also limitless. All of the many lands and countries appear from the network of thinking. Through experience, this network of illusion can be totally entered into a single thought. Eyes, nose, tongue, body, and mind faculties are also like that. The world is different because thinking differs, can all through sameness be entered. Each and every single stage of vision can be entered by limitless eye organs, with their various kind of natures which are different, limitless, and ineffably many. Yet what is seen does not have any difference, and is furthermore not jumbled or confused. In each, according to individual karma, the corresponding retribution is undergone. Universal worthy with limitless power completely knows them all in detail, and each and every single stage of vision, through great wisdom, can totally be entered. In that way, all in the various world systems can totally be known in detail.
What is more in cultivation of each and every conduct, there is also never any retreat. Speakings of Buddhas and speakings of living beings, as well as speakings of all countries, and speakings that way in the three periods of time, in their differences can totally be known.
The future, present in the past, the present in the future, all these three periods of time are reciprocally seen, yet every single one of them is clear. In that way, there are limitless kinds to enlighten those in the world. The skillful experience of all wisdom have no boundaries which can be obtained. End of chapter 36. Namo samanto modana polati hado jajana Ajimi jimi tanta gadana mowa sante polati uda tanta gadana mowa Pansaha namo samanto modana polati hado jajana Ni ajimi jimi tanta gadana mowa sante polati uda tanta gadana mowa hong pansaha namo samanto modana Polati hado jajana mi anji mi jimi tanta gadana mowa shanti polati uda moda gadana mowa hong pansoha. Praise for the seventh assembly. In the assembly for the second time in the universal light palace, the great Dharma is again expounded. Lofty, it transcends those on the 10 holy and 3 worthy stages. The meanings are equal, enlightenment, are mysterious and wondrous. The moon of the mind is singularly perfect, ultimately beyond verbal explanation. A special dedication. We dedicate the marriage to the approval of the height variants for the wonderful Enlightenment Buddhist Institute at the public hearing. Dedication of our minds as one and radiance with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find it, giving unity. May their minds awake to grace, compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of the endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Three bows. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Now